Here's your First Warn Weather Forecast First, sponsored by Anderson Collision Center. Visit driveanderson.com.
Light to steady rain has been the story through the majority of the afternoon and now into the evening today, as we still have this weather system that will continue to impact us for a little bit longer, but eventually some clearing and some drier air beginning to work its way in from the west and starting to see that edge of the rain get at least a little bit closer here toward the state line. Temperatures underneath all of the cloud cover that we have seen have really not budged a whole lot today. Our temperatures in Rockford have either been 44 or 45 degrees up until just now, all the way since yesterday evening. And so that very, very stagnant air, at least as far as temperatures are concerned, sticking with us until we get that clearing that eventually works its way in. Our temperatures do fall back into the 30s overnight tonight and only rebound into the low 40s tomorrow afternoon. I'll let you know how even the 40s could translate to some scattered snow showers tomorrow afternoon, coming up in your most trusted forecast a little later.
A local nonprofit receives thousands of dollars to combat gun violence. Organizers say the donation will help extend their reach to Rockford's youth.
Plus, youth sports tournaments set their sights on downtown Rockford. Going to hear from organizers on the economic boost these events have for local businesses.
And as the state line city's brought into the national spotlight, the local workers invited to Capitol Hill for the State of the Union.
Live from WTVO 17. This is Eyewitness News at 5.
Good evening, I'm Mimi Murphy.
And I'm David Greenberg. Thanks for joining us tonight at 5. Before we get to those stories, a Freeport man has been arrested after police say he beat a woman.
Yesterday, Freeport police officers were called to the area of West Avon Street and Southwest Avenue for reports of a domestic violence incident. Investigators say a 33-year-old man had injured a woman and threatened her with a gun. A short time later, officers found him inside a home nearby along with a handgun. Police took Marquise Chapman into custody. He's charged with unlawful use of a weapon by a felon and domestic battery. Chapman was taken to the Stevenson County Jail.
An Illinois solar company gives thousands of dollars to combat gun violence in the Forest City. Trajectory Energy Partners presented a $10,000 check to Get Connected 815 this afternoon. The organization aids gun violence victims and their families, offering support through temporary housing and counseling programs. Get Connected's executive director says this money will go a long way to helping them reach local kids.
It's going to help us reach more people, and I really believe that when you start with the children, that's your base. They're at an age where there's so many things drawing them in different directions, and if we have the funding where we can invest into what they are exposed to, because we're all products of our experiences, that they can have some positive experiences, it's going to make a difference in the long run.
Another $10,000 will be donated to Get Connected after Trajectory Energy completes their West Side solar project.
It's set to be a busy weekend in downtown Rockford. Some youth sports tournaments are in town.
Yeah, that means a lot of financial boosts for the city. Blake Dees checked out some of the action for himself. Blake, seems like thousands are making their way to the city.
Yeah, David, the BMO Center is packed with wrestlers competing in the Illinois Kids Wrestling Federation state finals. It's just one of the major sporting events happening downtown this weekend. On the other side of the river is the Rockin' Rockford AAU Grand Prix Volleyball Tournament. Both events mean thousands of visitors filling hotels, visiting restaurants, and checking out local stores. The wrestling tournament's director tells me they continue to bring more people to the city every year.
This year we added the girls divisions. So we have novice and senior boys, which are 13, 14, and 11, 12-year-old divisions. So now we added the girls divisions for those same two age groups. So that increased our tournament to 64 brackets. We had to add 2 more mats. You know, that's good for it. You know, I mean, it's, you know, we're generating income for the city as well with the tax money, you know, putting heads in beds and people feeding their faces. So
I'll have the full story from the BMO Center coming up at 6. Mimi.
All right, thanks for that, Blake. The state line was represented during the State of the Union address. Last night, President Biden highlighted Belvedere and the assembly plant. He linked Belvedere to the influence of unions and bringing jobs back to America. Third-generation worker Dawn Sims from Davis Junction was in the audience. She was a guest of First Lady Jill Biden. And local UAW President Matt Franzen was invited to Washington, D.C. by Congressman Bill Foster. President Biden hit the campaign trail in Pennsylvania today. The president took aim at his presumed Republican opponent in November, Donald Trump.
Hannah Brandt shows us while Democrats were excited by what they call the energy of the speech, Republicans argue it was too political.
Americans.
Cheered on by Democrats, President Biden used his State of the Union speech to make a re-election pitch.
I will always be president for all Americans.
With Congress in front of him and a campaign fight ahead of him, President Biden went on the attack, laying out his case against Donald Trump.
Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. Resentment, revenge, and retribution. That's not me.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says Democrats are energized by the political appeals.
Smoking Joe Biden was on fire.
But Republicans slammed the speech and accused the president of getting too political.
That was frustrating. This is supposed to be a State of the Union, and again, this was a campaign rally.
Congressman Darren LaHood says the president should be focused on uniting lawmakers. But Senator Katie Britt also got political in the Republican response.
The free world deserves better than a dithering and diminished leader.
As the 2024 campaign heats up, Congressman Jake Auchincloss says Democrats are showing voters a contrast.
The contrast in America invigorated by possibilities and devoted to freedom, and an America stuck in the MAGA grievance cycle.
But Congresswoman Ashley Hinson argues voters don't want another 4 years of President Biden.
And I think this country is going to move in a different direction in November.
Both President Biden and Donald Trump take their campaigns to Georgia this weekend. In Washington, I'm Hannah Brandt.
Illinois' primary election is now less than 2 weeks out. Getting an early prediction about some voting numbers, Emily Schnurr, an assistant professor of political science at Bradley University, says she expects to see lower voter turnout this election season compared to the record-breaking primaries of 2020. She says her students expressed not wanting to vote due to a lack of options, with local officials running unopposed and the age of both presidential options.
So most of the conversation has been on the presidential nomination and kind of the media trying to have some horse race politics in there, and there's just not much to be had. I mean, Nikki Haley just never could quite get some traction, and so it's really, and nobody really ran against Joe Biden.
Analysts also say mail-in ballots may save the lower projected turnout, but experts don't expect many to take to the polls. Primary elections are on Tuesday, March 19th.
In response to Alabama's Supreme Court ruling that embryos created through IVF are considered children, Illinois lawmakers are working to expand protection for the treatment. In 2019, Illinois passed the Reproductive Health Act. Protecting abortion rights was a key part of the legislation. Now the ACLU of Illinois says the Reproductive Health Care Act alone protects IVF, even laying out that embryos and fertilized eggs don't have independent rights. Governor Pritzker agrees that state law protects IVF, but he wants to see lawmakers do more.
I think that the more we can do to protect families who are trying to have children, the better off we are.
Lawmakers in Springfield have been pushing bills to expand insurance coverage for IVF treatment. However, some anti-abortion advocates oppose IVF. The executive director of Illinois Right to Life agrees with the Alabama Supreme Court's ruling and wants Illinois to take a similar position. Parents and community members unleash their emotions
after results of an investigation into a deadly school shooting. While the report shows police made mistakes, it clears the department and actually puts some of the blame on the crowd that day. Sharing reaction next.
Coming up at 6, a Forest City holiday tradition gets support from the state. The thousands of dollars coming to Stroll on State.
Well, our temperatures have not budged much here as we got into the afternoon and even this morning. Officially our lowest temperature of the day, currently sitting at 43 degrees, and that's the coolest it's been since yesterday morning. I'll let you know when we're expected to see even cooler temperatures and what that could bring for our precipitation chances coming up in just a few minutes.
An independent investigator finds police were not at fault in the Uvalde school shooting. Jesse Prado presented his findings at a special city council meeting yesterday. Some people walked out when he said those in the crowd that day made it harder for police to do their jobs. When Prado left after his presentation, family members shouted to bring him back. When he returned, he listened as families criticized his findings.
You call that good faith? They stood there 77 minutes and waited. After they got call after call, the kids were still alive in there.
There was no evidence of serious acts of misconduct in direct violation of Uvalde Police Department's policies.
19 students and 2 teachers were killed in that shooting.
Well, federal regulators are putting off a decision on Eli Lilly's potential Alzheimer treatment with an unusual request to have a panel of independent experts examine the drug. A drug maker was expecting a decision on the drug by the end of this month, widely expected by doctors, patients, and the company to be approved. Eli Lilly was told the FDA wants more information about the safety and effectiveness of that drug. No date has been set for the advisory committee to start that meeting. A common drug maker now plans to cap the out-of-pocket costs for all its inhalers at $35 a month. A company saying the program will start June 1st after them and 3 rival companies are under investigation by Democratic lawmakers for charging Americans significantly more than consumers pay overseas for the same products. Companies are also facing scrutiny for anti-competitive practices that can delay lower-cost generics from being sold.
Well, we spent most of the day in the 40s with cloudy skies and some showers.
Up next, Jordan looks at whether we clear out for the weekend and if there's some warmer temps on the horizon.
Now, your first warned weather forecast from meteorologist Jordan Wolf.
Light to steady rain showers has been the theme of this gloomy Friday afternoon, and we're still stuck with a few of those showers on the back end of this system. But eventually we do see some clearing that'll be on the horizon, bringing our temperatures, though, down into the 30s overnight tonight. All told, we've still seen some of these steadier showers ongoing even late into the evening now. Still some wet pavement out there overlooking our Poplar Grove SkyTrack camera. Off in the distance, we still see some of that rain falling as well. Some slightly lowered visibilities with some of the rain that has been falling in many spots. All told, we didn't see a whole extensive amount of rainfall, but many spots end up picking up anywhere from around 1/4 of an inch up to around 1/2 of an inch or even slightly more in a few other locations, with higher totals off to a south and to the southeast of the DeKalb area, where some of the heavier bands of rain had been pushing through the area. That system still remaining off to our south, at least the center of it right now, pretty close to Springfield. We see that with the counterclockwise spin in our wind directions. Up to the north and the west of that system, temperatures in the 40s. Off to the south, down in the 50s, and we're still stuck on the cooler side of that system, as has been the tail through the majority of the day today. That has now led to many of our temperatures still remaining in the 40s. 42 degrees in DeKalb as well as Rochelle. 43 in Rockford, actually the coolest temperature that we have seen since 9 a.m. yesterday morning, and many other spots also in the lower 40s as well. Dew points currently sitting in those low 40s and right around that 40-degree mark, leading to those higher humidity values, which is leading to the chances for some rain continuing into the night tonight. Temperatures will fall eventually once clouds begin to clear out down into the low 30s in a few locations. 34 degrees in Rockford. Winds, though, out of the north around 10 to 15 miles per hour. Once we get into tomorrow afternoon, our temperatures do rebound with possibly even some sunshine, but that then will be taken over by some of our scattered rain and snow chances. A system pulling in from the north and northwest will bring us a chance for some scattered rain and some snow as we get into tomorrow afternoon and the early evening hours. Rain, what we have right now, clearing out eventually, mainly toward 11 o'clock, midnight tonight. Still some scattered showers a few hours beyond that. We even see some of that clearing working in toward early tomorrow morning that could drop some spots into the low 30s and into the upper 20s. Mid-30s in those locations that remain underneath cloud cover. And then once we get into tomorrow afternoon, that system pulling in from the northwest, bringing some cooler air in the few thousand feet aloft, and that brings us the chance for some snow showers into the region. And those may last at least for a couple of hours, but will not be very widespread, just very scattered in nature with those snow showers. But they could pose some quick drops in visibility. Not expecting any accumulation, though, given our temperatures have been in the 40s. This is all able to fall because of the cooler air around 1,000 or 2,000 feet up in the atmosphere. That's showing all of this below freezing air in that upper level, and that is helping to allow that snow to fall despite temperatures at the surface being still in those lower 40s. This is typically what we expect to see around the winter time when we have these columns of air, and even though we have a very thin layer of warmer air that's just above freezing, that is still allowing for that snow to fall and not quite melt until it gets to the surface. We are seeing those warmer temperatures eventually, though, once we get into the second part of the weekend. 42 degrees during the day tomorrow with the scattered rain and snow. 48 on Sunday, but that brings some sunshine to the area, and then into the 60s for much of the week ahead before our next weather system works in toward the end of the week.
It'd be nice to see some sunshine there, Jordan. Thanks.
Reagan's in next with sports. The Blackhawks stay fairly quiet ahead of today's trade deadline.
Plus, a look ahead to a big matchup for Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Now sports with Reagan Holgate.
The last couple of NHL trade deadlines have seen the Blackhawks part ways with some pretty big names like Patrick Kane and Jake McCabe. But after extending some veterans earlier in the season, Chicago kept things pretty quiet ahead of today's deadline. Yesterday's trade of Anthony Beauvillier to Nashville turned out to be the lone move that they would make. Luke Richardson still has Tyler Johnson and Colin Blackwell for the final 19 games, though. Those two may have been of interest to a few playoff contenders, but even if they were, GM Kyle Davidson didn't get the right asking price.
Heading into it, I thought maybe there would be a little more activity. Whether we did something or not, it was a different story. But I just thought there would be a little more action on our end. But it was quieter, which is fine, and we're happy to have the group we have moving through the deadline. And so, no, I wasn't like dead set on trying to make other moves or anything. If it happened, it happened, and it didn't.
Now, Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes have been at the center of the sports universe this season, and that spotlight only gets brighter as tournament time approaches. Now, for the first time in its 30-year history, the Big Ten women's basketball tournament sold out every ticket for the 5-day event. Number 2 seed Iowa will take the court tonight against Penn State at 5:30, so just a few minutes away from tip-off there. The winning team advances to the semifinals tomorrow afternoon, and Iowa is going for their 3rd straight championship title. Now, talk about selling out fast. The Caitlin Clark effect is already making its way to the WNBA. Her decision to declare for the draft has the sports world spinning. The league announced the April draft would be open to fans for the first time in 8 years, and tickets sold out within just 15 minutes. Clark is obviously the unanimous pick to go number 1 overall, and that will be to the Indiana Fever. Now, in some local hoops, the Illinois media announced the all-state teams for both 3A and 4A boys basketball. DeKalb's Sean Reynolds received an honorable mention, along with Auburn senior Rakim Shaney. Now, senior Adam Brown was the only local name we had in Class 3A. He also received an honorable mention. Congrats, of course, to all of our guys on another incredible season. That's sports. We'll be right back.
So we may see something tomorrow that we haven't seen in quite some time.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
Flurries.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, some snow flurries, but we're not expecting anything to accumulate. So the good news is for those who like to see the snow globe kind of experience, I know Mimi's a big fan of that. At least you can see that
it's March now.
Right. But, maybe not changing your mind now. But we do have at least a chance for that as we get into tomorrow. The first one, interactive radar, though, showing the rain that we still have ongoing as we get into the rest of the evening tonight. Some drier air expected by around midnight tonight, but tomorrow afternoon and evening, chances for some snow flurries to be flying along with some of those rain showers, even though temperatures will be in the 40s. In the mid-40s and upper 40s on Sunday, 60s on Monday with sunshine, and those 60s hold on through most of the weekend.
All right, thanks, Jordan.
World News Tonight's up next. We'll see you back here at 6.